Now, you may think that the other intervals, the dissonant intervals, are useless, but in fact dissonance drives all of our music, because dissonant intervals want to resolve into consonant intervals. Now, the really bad dissonant intervals, the minor second, and to a lesser extent, the major seventh, are generally too dissonant for direct use. But there is great power in the mildly dissonant major second, augmented fourth, and minor seventh. The major second, for instance, is used all the time in suspension chords. The augmented fourth is, when used in a dominant seventh chord, resolves outward into a minor sixth. La da ha ha. In the augmented sixth chords, it resolves outward into a perfect fifth. Ha ha. Ha. Now, and as for the minor seventh, that is the very outline of a dominant seventh chord, and it resolves inward into a major sixth. Da, ha, ha, ha. And so, as these intervals are resolving and then creating new dissonances and resolving, they cause chords to move, to progress. And riding on top of those chord progressions is a melody. And so this is how dissonant intervals drive our music. So let's get practical. How do we start with a melody and from that write harmonies? Our goal is to write a number of lines of harmony that when looked at vertically form chords, and when looked at horizontally form very beautiful singable lines, yet preserve the distinctness and independence of the individual voices. Now, the technique used to do this is called counterpoint. This was developed by consensus during the Renaissance, and it was brought to great heights in the work of Giovanni Pierluigi da Palestrina. His work was then summarized by Johann Fuchs and has been taught to music majors ever since and followed to the present day. In four voices, this technique is also known as chorale writing, and it is the method by which hymns are harmonized even today. Now, it's very interesting the way that counterpoint treats the most consonant intervals, which are the octave and the perfect fifth. Now, recall that this is because many of a note's harmonics overlap perfectly with that of its octave or perfect fifth. So now that's good for chords, and yet in a way it's too good, because the intervals are so much in tune that the ear tends to fuse them into one tone, such that the two voices that are forming that interval seem to disappear into each other. Now, I have another demonstration for you. Below at left, I have the same sawtooth wave that I used earlier. Here it is again. Okay, and now on the right, what I've done is to completely turn off the fundamental. Now, you'd think that this would change the sound dramatically. I mean, after all, it's the fundamental. There's nothing left but the harmonics. And you see that the wave changes quite dramatically. And yet, let's compare before and after. There's a little bit of change, but not very much. This is known as the phenomenon of the missing fundamental. So even though the fundamental was missing, our auditory systems examined the harmonics and reinserted the fundamental. So why is this relevant to us at this point? Because what is the interval between those first two harmonics that are still there? It's a fifth. So you see that under the correct circumstances, the ear can hear a fifth and come up with a note that is just completely different, which would of course detract from the independence of the two lines that are making the fifth. And of course that's even worse if those two lines move around in parallel fifth. So where does that leave us? Well, here are the rules regarding octaves and fifths. First, no parallel movement. An octave or fifth may not move into another octave or fifth. Secondly, no hidden octaves or fifths, meaning that the outer voices, which are the most exposed, may not move in the same direction into an octave or fifth unless the soprano is moving in step. The idea behind this exception is that if the soprano has at least not moved much from where it was before, the ear should still be able to pick out the new soprano note from any fused complex that it has gotten itself into.